Lesotho's Prime Minister Thomas Thabane is facing a vote of no confidence. Making matters worse is the fact that this motion is being led by his own party. It follows a disputed elective conference that took place earlier this year in February. Now, the newly elected administration was met with resistance, and the ousted National Elective Committee refused to vacate office. Instead, it approached the courts, citing election irregularities. This has also led to some power tussle between the new and the old committee. But to discuss what is happening in Lesotho, we are now joined in studio by elections and governance expert from Shale Consultants, Dr. Victor Shale. Dr. Shale, good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you very much for having me on your show.
Now, I've given a bit of background to what may be happening to Lesotho, but just give us more, really. Are we seeing some internal party power struggles playing out here?
The historiography of political parties in Lesotho is ridden with intra-party conflicts. But what we are seeing now is a manifestation of the intricacies that go with coalition politics. Lesotho entered into the coalition political landscape in 2012, and they have never really put their finger on the pulse in terms of how to stabilize coalitions. And as we have seen since 2012, they have for every 2 years gone for fresh elections, what are called snap elections, because the coalition government would not sustain itself.
Yeah, I wanted to go back a bit as you made mention of the fact that Lesotho entered into this coalition politics back in 2012. As you say, the same scenario happened in 2015, was repeated in 2017. Here we are again in 2019. This shows, Dr. Shale, that they may be heading to the polls once again if the motions goes ahead.
Very soon we are likely to see another snap election in Lesotho, and that would be disastrous because they have just dissolved an electoral commission. They are in the process of appointing new commissioners. So if that scenario was to happen, then it would mean that they have a serious crisis in their hands. So we are looking with keen interest to see what is going to happen, because from what we hear, there is a likelihood of an adjournment of parliament for a winter recess. And if that happens, maybe, just maybe, they may be able to buy time until when they reconvene. And who knows, maybe by that time the sponsors of the said motion of confidence may withdraw it, or they may go ahead with it. But if they were to go ahead with it, only two things have to happen in terms of the Lesotho Constitution. The first one is that then the Prime Minister has to then resign within 3 days of the motion having passed, if it was to pass. Secondly, if he does not resign, he then has to approach the King of Lesotho and advise the King to dissolve Parliament and then prepare for the snap elections in 3 months' time. And so that is a scenario that can only come into play if the said motion of confidence actually passes. But for now, there's a lot of uncertainty, and we look with keen interest to see what happens.
Let's talk about the Prime Minister's role really in advising, or rather the King's role in all of this. The powers vested in him by the Lesotho Constitution. Does he just remain a ceremonial figure? Does he really have a say? Because some people argue that there is a clause within the Constitution that if His Majesty acts against the advice or the Prime Minister's advice, then the Prime Minister's advice overrules any decision that can be taken by His Majesty.
Sure, yes. Lesotho operates a Westminster parliamentary system that they inherited from England. And indeed, the king remains a constitutional monarch, meaning he's ceremonial. Real power lies with the Prime Minister. And indeed, they have that clause that academics refer to as a suicide clause, that if the king refuses the advice of the Prime Minister, the Prime Minister shall go ahead and implement such an advice, and that will be deemed in law as the decision of the king himself. So the king really doesn't have much to maneuver.
Power, yeah. But is Mhlompe Tom Thabane likely to resign, as you say, that he will have to do it within 3 days after the motion has been passed?
It's going to be an interesting one to watch because he seems to not have control over the party at the moment. The group that was elected in February seems to be gaining momentum, and so it remains to be seen really.
Is it gaining momentum due to some decisions taken by the courts maybe?
There's a ping-pong battle in courts of law because the Lesotho judiciary is also, seriously compromised. You see a pattern where the High Court of Lesotho makes decisions in favor of the previous committee, if I may say, and then the appeal court taking decisions, reversing the High Court decisions in favor of the newly elected guys. So there's a lot of judiciary that is also highly compromised. So I don't think the Prime Minister will let go that easily. But also there's another dimension to this, that the mere fact that a motion of confidence has been tabled does not necessarily follow that it will pass, because it goes down then to numbers. How many members of parliament of the leading party in coalition government are going to stay with the Prime Minister, and how many will follow the new committee, and how many members of parliament from the opposition parties are prepared to side with either of the factions. So that's another area.
It would be very interesting to see, because some members of his party are behind this motion of no confidence.
Absolutely.
A very quick one on this. I've been monitoring some developments, of course, in Lesotho, most on social media. A lot of people really posting about the First Lady and her influence over the government. Some saying that she's got some overreach in government matters. Let me just put you on the corner on this one and let you respond to it.
Look, in terms of democratic governance, the reason why people go to elections is to seek popular mandate from the citizens. Now, any idea where people who have not been duly elected in the political party structures, once they begin to assume leadership roles in those parties, it's a bad idea. It is worse when people who have not been elected into government as individuals then begin to assume the responsibilities of the people who have been constitutionally elected. It's a bad idea. We have seen it happen in Zimbabwe. We are seeing it in other countries. That is a recipe for disaster.
All right.
And it is never going to help Lesotho in any way.
Time constraints, we'll leave it at this, but I suppose we'll keep a very close eye on the developments in Lesotho. Thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you so much.